Hi, this is Paul Palmer. Today I want to talk to you about auditing. Now, I've been auditing now for about 24 years. And the interesting part about auditing I find is that you often learn something. Now, I do remember the first audit I went on, and the manager that I was working for, he said to me, just because they do things a different way doesn't mean they're doing it wrong. And he explained that different people fulfill the GMP requirements for pharmaceutical manufacturing in different ways. So look at what they're doing, verify that they're doing what they're supposed to do according to their own SOPs, but also look at whether they're compliant with the regulations. But don't just assume, just because they don't do it the way we do it, that they're wrong, that they're not compliant. And I've taken the same philosophy throughout my career. And I do find that there are so many different ways to do the same activity. You can manufacture, but when you prepare, do you kit it or do you have it line side? What type of equipment should you have ready? Should you be making sure, using the 5S principles, that everything that you need has got its place and that you've put the shadow boards in place so that you know when you've got something missing when you start? When you're doing audits, what should you be looking for? Well, it's actually quite easy to work out the areas to target when you've done a few audits already, because it's quite often the same areas. Training, for example, can be fulfilled in many different ways. But what about competence? Well, what's the best option for competence? Well, it's certainly not give them the SOP, let them read it, and then let them sign it off themselves, because that's not demonstrating competence. That's just showing you that they've been through it and they've signed it off. Doesn't show anything. Calibration. Calibration makes sure it's across the range that the probes are being exposed to. So often I see calibration certificates, single point. What does that mean? Well, it means that the calibration is right at that one point. But what about the other data? Well, what you need to understand with calibration is the response curve. You have a linear portion to the response curve, and you have a curve where it tails off at either end, in most cases. Sometimes you have just a straight S curve, sometimes it's more complicated. But you want to make sure that you've got a linear response on the range where you're actually doing your measurements. If you don't, then does your data really mean anything? And of course, it has to be traceable back to national standards. So make sure you get that certificate, because if you don't, you've got no evidence. And what does the FDA say? If it's not written down, it's a rumor. So if you don't have the evidence, it doesn't mean anything. But I do enjoy audits. I've been on one today, a new one, a GDP audit. Interesting site. And it was a remote audit. And the good thing about it, what I quite enjoyed, was we still did the tour. We did the tour through the camera on his phone. And I still got to see all the different areas. Okay, it wasn't as easy as being on site and there, and I had to direct him to go to different places and different directions. But we still managed to do the audit, which I'm really pleased to say was successful. Okay, there's some observations, but that's not unusual, is it? Not really. But what I recommend to anybody and everybody, not just those of you that are in quality, but those of you that want to learn more about pharmaceuticals, or in fact medical devices or any other manufacturing environment or service supply, if you want to learn more, the really good way to do it is go be an auditor, because you're going to learn a lot, just as much as you achieve the results, delivery. You're going to learn plenty that you can apply throughout the rest of your career. And what's that worth? Well, it's like being paid to be trained. It's excellent. Good luck. Okay, that's it for me today. Talk to you soon. It's Paul Palmer.